Hello everyone, welcome back to Phoenix Landing Studio, and today I need to put together a funk and R&B pedal board. As of the recording of this video, March 2020, I'm currently in a funk R&B band, and I need to put together a pedal board which will accommodate all the songs that I've been given to learn. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, stick around, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks. Alright boys and girls, without further ado, let's build this funk and R&B pedal board. Any guitarist worth his or her salt should go through a tuner, and I've chosen the Poly Mini Tune 3 by TC Electronics because it's got a big screen, and B, it's got a buffer inside the pedal. And if you don't know what a buffer is, there's tons of videos on YouTube that will tell you about buffers. So I chose this mainly because it's got a buffer in it. And that's going to go at the beginning of the chain. Ideally you want a buffer at the end of the chain as well, but as of right now I'm just using the one buffer, and it's got a tuner, so two birds with one stone. The next pedal I'm going to be using the SP compressor by Exotic Effects. Compression is a big part of funk and R&B. A lot of those classic tunes, I mean, those things were, I wouldn't say overproduced, but you can tell the production value was there, and compression played a big part in funk guitar anyway. And when you're gigging, you don't want a complicated compressor. You just don't. You don't want to be bending over during songs, fiddling around with compression, because compression can get a bit fiddly. So this pedal is ideal for gigging. It's got 3 levels of compression, low, medium and high. It's got 2 knobs, a volume and a blend, and that's it. That's all you need. I usually match the volume with the amp's volume, and the compressor is like 2/3 on, and that's it. That's what I use for compression. After that, nothing says 70s funk like the old Jim Dunlop Crybaby wah wah pedal, and I'm using my trusty one, which is from the 80s. It's been modded on the inside, and it's been very reliable, so that's what I go into next. The next one, as a funk guitarist, you're not asked to solo very often, but when you do, you want to be heard. Now, a lot of the guys on recordings in the 70s, they used the fuzz because fuzz was big back then. But I chose not to. I chose to just because the band wants to get into like wedding gigs and things like that. So I thought, well, fuzz is a bit too much. Let's just keep it moderate and use an overdrive pedal. And this Friedman Brown Eye overdrive comes with adjustable dip switches on the inside. Now, I've adjusted the dip switches so that this thing only sounds moderately distorted, overdriven, because it does come ready as an 80s scream machine, basically, which is what Friedman to me is what that's what it's all about. But I've dialed it down a little bit, and if I'm going to take a solo, I know I'm going to be heard with this, and I like the sound of it. So that's going to be next. Finally, I'm going to be using a modulation pedal, and it's going to be the Boss Phaser. It's the BF3. I believe I got this in a pawn shop years ago. This one, very reliable. You can't go wrong with Boss. Built like a tank. Does the job. That's all you need. It's one of those pedals, for me anyway, when listening to Niles Rodgers and Chic, other bands in the 70s, funk-wise, The phaser was the thing back then. I think in the 80s, the chorus effect replaced it really, but in the 70s, phaser was the thing. You have to remember Van Halen was going. Then he had a phaser on everything. So in the 70s, phaser for rhythmic, the rhythmic lines and stuff for funk and R&B as well. So that completes my funk and R&B pedal board. Now, I know what you're thinking, why don't I have a delay on there? Well, partly because the amount of music I've listened to over the years with these two genres, there isn't much delay. Now, you will find some, but not much, and I've chosen not to bother with delay. The other thing I don't bother with when it comes to funk, no reverb, well, very little reverb. You, as a funk player, you want to be part of the rhythm section, the percussive section, and so in order to be heard and the rhythmic elements of your playing to be heard, you don't want reverb, because reverb pushes your sound back. And because of funk anyway, the guitar player, the rhythm of the guitar player is a key thing, and it wants to be heard. Very little reverb, if any. And I use the reverb on the amp. This over here, let me show you, is the amp I'm going to be using. There it is. It's a 65 watt Fender amp, and that's it. I'm keeping it very simple because funk guitarists, the whole genre of funk anyway, is use what you've got at hand. That's the mentality of the genre basically. It's don't get fancy. That's not what it's about. That's it. That's what I'm using as a funk and R&B rhythm board. Now when it comes to R&B, now the R&B songs that I've been given to learn, some of those are from the 80s and the 90s. Now some of those do have a bit more, let's say, production with the sound and delays and things like that, and choruses are involved. But to be quite honest with you, I can always mimic a delay sound on the guitar just by the way I play it. The amount of songs that I've been given, the ones that have chorus in them aren't that many, so it's just going to be a waste of real estate on the board to have a chorus pedal on there. So I just opted for the phase. The buffer is going to help me because I've got at least 50 foot of cables to go through. The buffer is going to push or strengthen my signal through the 25 foot of cable, through all this, and then through another 25 foot of cable going to the amp or the mixing desk or whatever I'm going to. And that's it in a nutshell. There's your simple but honest and trusty rhythm, funk and R&B pedal board. Okay, now I'm going to use some Velcro to Velcro these things to the board. I'm going to be using this X-Fasten brand of Velcro. I found out recently that Velcro is not actually the name of the stuff. Velcro is actually the brand. This stuff is actually called hook and loop. So when you say Velcro, you're talking about a brand. When you're talking the actual stuff, it's called hook and loop. So anyway, I digress. We're going to put these on the back of each pedal, stick to the board. We're going to get that done. Usually if you're going to apply this stuff, you can use a hairdryer to heat up the glue and then stick them on the pedals. That's the professional way to do it. You can get this quite cheaply. I got this off Amazon for about I think it was $2.50 or something like that. So Velcro. Oh, sorry, hook and loop. tied it all together. Excuse the hiss because I'm sitting quite close to the amplifier, so it's going to get a bit hissy. The further back you go, the less hiss. And the pedal board's right up against it too, so that's not helping with the background noise. Completed the Velcroing, or the hook and looping, should I say, to the pedals, and they're all pretty much stuck on there. They are, you know, they are a bit wobbly by design, because that way you can get your guitar cable in and out, and just in case there's a problem, you can always remove one of these patch cables and replace it with another one. Not that you'll need it, because all these patch cables are soldered, and I moved away from solderless patch cables about a year and a half ago, because I just found they were just too unreliable during gigs and performances and things. So I moved back to soldering patch cables. My dad actually got me a new soldering iron, so I'm back to doing that again. And to be quite honest with you, that's the way to go. The solderless wires are just too unreliable, and they're just too expensive as well for what they are. So I use as well, at the top here, I use a MXR DC brick. This powers all of the pedals, because I don't like to rely on batteries for the pedals, because that's just another thing to go wrong. So DC brick, that's also velcroed in as well, and the wires coming from the DC brick to power all the pedals as well, they're all neatly wrapped, stuck to the pedal board to stop those from moving as well. And that's it. So that to me, and I'm going to find this out pretty soon with this band, that to me is the ultimate funk and R&B pedal board. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next session.